Hello and welcome to the Good Old Days, our Raynham program, focusing on the history of our town of Raynham. Our host is retired selectman Don McKinnon.
Thank you, Pat. Nice to be with you as always.
And our special guest today is Kathleen Roberts, the First Lady of Raynham.
And both of us,
Oh, my.
all three of us go back 25 years.
Doing cable, exactly.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, definitely.
And I was just saying to Kathleen that she did the first interview on the Al Porter Award, and it was Al Porter.
Al Porter.
And I said that Butch Morrison, I said, was the first recipient. And Albert says, what about me? and I said, Albert, you are the Al Porter Award. You don't get your own award, Al.
No, you
are.
don't.
No, but
It's
you
the-
are
Yes,
the Al
he
Porter.
is.
And then they taped over it.
Well, that's why we're doing these shows, right, Dawn, to kind
Right.
of preserve
Michael is
history.
saving these now. yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, they
exactly.
wasted them. But
And
that's-
we focus on the history of Raynham. And Kathleen, you've seen quite a bit of the history of Raynham and been very involved in it, as you have been.
Oh,
Dawn.
I've got the town report. I always have you read it.
Okay.
Shall
the one
we?
that was dedicated to Kathleen?
Yes.
Sure.
It was in 19, ever since you got off the Mayflower, Kathleen,
Oh, it's a lovely picture. This was 1993. Oh, my
93,
goodness.
just the other day.
Kathleen Ryan Robertson, you've been so involved with everything since then, but at that point, I should say, you were a member of the Raynham Library Association since 1964. You still are. As a matter of fact, I understand you just recently reached a milestone of 50 years
On the library.
on the library.
library.
Wow,
She
that's a beautiful
received
library, too. You've done
Received-
good
I
work.
got beautiful flowers.
Beautiful
what you
flowers
should.
to mark the occasion. President of the Library Association for probably a number of years. Member of the Friends of the Library Association. Member of the Raynham Historical Society. 20 years at that point, and so many more
She was
now.
80 at that time, just a
Okay.
kid.
Okay. And obviously you're the president of the Historical Society now and have been for many years. You were current president at that point, too, in 1993. Wow. Member of the Bicentennial Commission, a member of the Raynham Historical Commission, you still are. Ray Volunteer, you still are, on our board of directors. School Improvement Council for the North School in 1987 to 89, where you were the principal for many years. School Site Council for that as well. Council on Aging since 1986, and that's been continuous, Kathleen, right? You still
right.
serve? Volunteer for Continental Cablevision. It was back then, and still obviously a volunteer here. Volunteer of the Year, Continental Cablevision in 1993. Volunteer and Director of the Raynham Food Basket. And the dedication says, Dear fellow citizens, it is time once again to honor one of Raynham's truly fine citizens, a woman who has devoted much of her life to the community in which she lives. A teacher in the Raynham school system and principal of the North School for many years, Mrs. Roberts retired in 1984, yet her involvement in the town had only just begun. How true is that? As you read through the long list of Kathleen's volunteer efforts, these things stand out. Her dedication to excellence in education and learning, her love of history, and her concern for her fellow human beings. Approaching her 80th birthday, that was a few years ago. She is more active than ever. On any given day, one might see Mrs. Roberts on cable television, expounding on some aspect of Raynham's history, or distributing donated food to the needy, or helping set policy for the town's library or council on aging. One may wonder what motivates people like Kathleen to devote so much time and energy to their community, but in the end we can only hope to encourage it by recognizing such individuals in some meaningful way. Therefore, with great pride, we dedicate Raynham's annual report for 1993 to Kathleen Ryan Roberts, and it's signed Marie Smith, Donald McKinnon, and Robert Cardesi.
Very
And
nice.
Kathleen also received the Albert Porter Citizen of the Year Award, one of only a couple.
With Maxine at the time.
Maxine,
Right.
yep.
And it was on dedicating one of
We were the chairs of the celebration.
The
of 250 or something.
250th anniversary for the
Yeah.
town of Raynham's celebration.
With Maxine.
275th.
275th, yep.
So one
Been
of
around there, so.
one of maybe only a couple people who have received
Who've
both
received
awards.
both, that's right. It's 3 or 4, and that's
Right.
about it.
But so deserving. So Kathleen, what motivates people to be so involved in their community as you have been for so many years.
I don't know what motivates most of them, but I just enjoy it. And I like meeting people, and that's a good way to meet people. And I've been lucky to have energy. I had that all my life, and I was into things when I was a kid too, so just kept going.
You did launch the Pride, and then laterals, we'd say, in our business to Kevin Ellis. Did Kevin
Yes,
come
yes,
to
we-
you, or did you go to Kevin, or how did that
Oh, no,
work?
no, I went to Kevin, yes,
Okay.
because I knew that he was somebody who would be willing to do that hard work. So I asked him, and it's been great since. He's done a good real.
I
He
think
and
they're
Shirley
for the
do a wonderful
20th
job.
year or something, I
Yes,
think.
yes, I can
Yeah,
believe it.
when Raynham Pride Day started, it was at the library.
That's
and
right.
then it got
we
really
had that at
too
the
big
library.
for that location.
Got much too big, yes. So. he
So you
took it.
launch these things, and then you find out, put it over to, in this case, Kevin.
Well, he's wonderful. He's
Done a wonderful job. And
Yes.
Shirley.
They've done
wonderful
wonderful
work.
job.
And
Yes.
Kathleen was just recognized at the Raynham Pride Day we just had for reaching an important milestone, an important birthday. Next year, we're going to have a huge celebration, Kathleen.
Well, so I hear.
Definitely, 99 years young. That's amazing.
That's right. I think Kathleen wanted to speak about M. Patrice.
Yeah.
If you want me.
So please.
Sure. Another really wonderful member of our community
yes.
that we recently lost,
It
Patrice
couldn't
White.
have anybody any better because she was an excellent teacher, there's no question. She was so concerned, and she could inspire children and help them develop their potential. And she kept right at it until she did. So she was very, very successful with children. And they loved her as a result.
Sure,
Because
sure.
they felt they didn't have anything to offer, and she showed them that they did.
She had a
and-
young authors convention where they would write their stories
Yes,
and have
yes.
invite people to come in
Right,
and
I
read
had a
them.
former student of mine who wrote about me, and I remember going to
That's
that. It
nice.
was lovely the way it was done. Yes,
I think over 30 years. She taught most in Raynham. I taught a little in Taunton, but
little
mostly
in Taunton.
in Raynham.
That's right.
And I believe she was the first person inducted into what was then the La Liberty Hall of Fame,
That's
and then
right.
has become the Raynham Middle School
That's
Hall of
right.
Fame.
Yes, I think she was.
And then she wrote the history of Raynham.
Which I actually happened to bring along,
Aha.
which in this book is the curriculum for the 3rd grade in our Raynham schools is based upon this book.
Hardcover.
That's right. Well,
She
that's
did
good. You
very
have
well.
something-
Wonderful
go.
piece of history
Sure.
here. She did a lot of research. Actually, I think received a Horace Mann grant to
Yes, she
to
did.
write this.
She did. She
and
received
put
a
a lot
grant.
of time and effort into it, and it's a wealth of information.
It's wonderful.
I
And
used
it's
to
nice.
always kid her that she was one of my teachers when I was younger. Of course, we were about the same age, so that was fun. I said, I spent 3 of the best years of my life in your room, trying to get out of the room. But she had a good sense of humor.
Very good. Very good.
And a really positive outlook. It was
All
always,
of us.
even in the
never,
last year.
Never complained, never said, why me? Never. You never. You'd call her up, talk to her, and is it a good day or a bad day? That's how we always started. And it was good day, well, great. If a bad day, well, you talk somewhat differently. But never complaining, no.
Betty Thompson told me that her husband had the same history of,
Yes,
of
yes, he did.
method of making bad times good, which is really an art form for
It is.
people. And
Not many people.
Patrice White did that.
Yes, she did.
She,
Yeah.
she was working the polls, I think, just this last
Yes,
time. or
Yeah,
something.
she
absolutely
was.
right. I
Yeah.
had
And
forgotten
loved to
that,
do
yeah.
it.
So she was always in on things,
Always
right?
a worker. She joined things, but not to sit around. She wanted to be active, doing
Sure.
things.
Yep.
And she was a really good friend of yours, Kathleen.
Yes, she was. Yes, I'm very lucky. She was we talked every day. She's a very good friend. Yeah,
But like you, once she retired from teaching, she just stayed involved, through our volunteer organization, our RAVE organization. Anytime there was a special project, as you do,
Yes.
she would be there, right?
she was
to
there.
help out, whether it
Yeah,
was.
she loved to help. She was a doer, not one that wanted her name just to have your name on the committee or something.
Right.
She was a doer.
Involved also in the Historical Society.
Oh, yes. she was
Historical
a-
Commission for years.
Yes, yeah.
And of course the
interesting-
Council on Aging.
She didn't want to just do nothing, Some people like to be on committees and they don't especially do anything, but that was not her way. No, she had to do something. She wanted to. Plunge right into whatever it was.
We
And
are
her son
definitely
and,
missing-
and daughter-in-law now and her grandchildren live up on Elm Street, I believe, and
Yes,
a nice
yeah.
new home. And then she tackled that later in life also,
Oh, yes.
just within the last 5 years, 4 years.
Her two granddaughters are actually students here at the Raynham Middle School.
That's right.
And they obviously worshipped her and she them.
Oh, yes, it was mutual. There was no question. They were together as much as they could be. Actually, they sang to her as she was dying. Yeah. Oh, no, they were her whole life. Well, her son, of course,
sure.
and daughter-in-law. Daughter-in-law was great, too. So she was surrounded by nice people. Yeah.
Well, she left us a legacy that will live on for years.
That's
for
right.
Sure. And this in addition to everything else that she did.
And she participated in, that was done by Alan, who was here, now he's in Lakeville, I believe, the cable man. And he did a 3-part or 4-part, I believe, history of Raynham. One of them was shown down at the Old Colony.
Yes.
And Patrice was very much a part of that, as were both of you were part of it, and I was in there a little bit. So it was, the old team was there
The old
going. We were working on it. I sent a copy of it over to her house for
Well,
her
if you have the
grandchildren.
interest we have, you'll never lose it.
No,
No.
no.
And that's good.
Definitely. We'll have to see if we can get that played again, Don. That hasn't aired
Well,
for a while.
what I've thought was that the Old Colony was going to play one a year for 4 years. And the first time, it drew to such an extent that members couldn't get in. Because members are so used to coming at the last minute.
Last minute is
And
right.
it was packed. The fire department said no more. So they had to run it, I believe, another night or something for the members because it was so crowded.
Well, are they going to?
Well, here's the catch-22. Is that what it is? What was I saying? Here's the catch-22. It was really about Raynham when it was part of Taunton. So it was of interest to the Taunton historians. Billy Hanna was a big part of it. and
Oh,
all.
yes.
So as they went into other sections, though, it became Raynham history, not Taunton. So would they be interested? To tell you the truth, I'd have to look over tape too to let you know whether they might be or not. But they were very interested in that.
I think they would be.
Well, it
I
did.
have a
Well, they
feeling
said they were going to, and then they didn't. You know, I said, you know, you and I've been more than patient with that historical in Taunton
Well,
because
listen.
we were going to steal the cannon from you. Kathleen and I were going to go down to the historical Old
Toby
Colony,
Gilmore's Cannon.
2 o'clock in the morning,
Yes.
and
Oh,
get
yes.
that cannon and roll it up Broadway to
Yes,
Borden,
absolutely.
to the
We
Gilmore
all-
Hall.
It still might happen. Don't anybody tell.
No, well,
No.
people in Raynham can keep a
A
secret.
secret. But, yeah.
Not a bad
Why
idea.
not? This time yet.
Speaking,
Just keep it.
Kathleen, our historical society, that's something that Pat White was involved in, as
Yes,
you
certainly.
are, and I know it's a real love of yours. Tell us a little bit about the Historical Society. Everyone thinks the Hannett House, that's where it's located.
Yes, it's
basically.
located
home.
at the head house, and we have meetings every other month with programs, usually programs. We have an open house at least once a year, and in the summertime we always have a picnic in the Grove, because that's our grove, so we figure it's a good
It's
thing.
very
to-
nice, too, very
It's lovely.
picturesque.
It's very nice.
Beautiful.
And we'll be having an open house probably around the Christmas holidays, something like that. That's very good. And we have Eleanor Calvin, who you know is a great musician, usually plays for us the holiday songs and everything. And it's nice. And people who've never been in like to come in and see what it's like.
Sure.
And then I think last year we had at the same time we were having the program that we have with what's their names now? My neighbor too. Where people
The Luminary Night.
Luminary night. We had it so the people could go up to the luminary afterwards. And we
Yes.
started ours earlier. Yes.
Very good. Now, how many years has the Historical Society been in existence, approximately?
Since 1972.
Really? Okay. And their motivation is to promote the history, safe.
Promote the history, is
Right,
right.
of the
That's
town.
right. So keep it going so people know about it.
Right.
Because anyone coming in new wouldn't know, probably wouldn't know much about it. That's our.
Well, the
team.
society and the commission, you're on both.
Yes.
And so therefore, some people think they compete against each other,
No,
but
they don't.
complement each other.
That's right. They complement.
But they have different goals because a year or so ago, there's a for sale sign out in front of you-know-whose
Yes.
house now.
Yes.
Ernie Hellity's house. And over a year ago, Ernie called and he said he wanted to donate the house to the commission and the society. And I said to him, this can't happen though,
No.
because the commission is a creature of the Commonwealth.
That's right.
And the society is a creature of citizens who have historical involvement in the town of Raynham, not connected other than the fact that many of the members are the same, but you can't do that. I thought, and I'm probably wrong because it's now the house is for sale, I thought when his wife died, I thought she might have left something in the will that tied it to the society.
We thought that she might leave something in the house, though, to us. We kind of thought that. Because
And that wasn't so either?
No.
No.
Well, tell us about the current location, the Hannett House. Tell
Yes.
us about the Hannett House.
Well, the Haddon House, you know, is quite old house, and we try to keep it up. What we do for insurance sake, we have a caretaker. And actually, the girl now is the one who is going to be Raynham's first firefighter, female firefighter. And she's there, so that helps us with our insurance. And
That's
everything.
Amy.
Amy.
Amy Glavin.
Amy. The lovely girl.
A good name in
It is a
Raynham history.
wondertown name
She
historically in
keeps
the
it.
town of
She keeps
Raynham.
it very nice for us, and her family can help her too, and they do. And so it's always immaculate. And she's a lovely girl.
But the house was donated by Miss Isabel
Oh,
Hannett.
yes, she left that in her will. If we could take it over, if there came a time when we didn't think we could carry on, it's to go back to the town. Yeah, but so far, so good.
So in the house you have historical items, and
Well, we
obviously
do.
the house itself is historical.
Oh, certainly. 1770, is it 2 or 3? Either one of those.
Sure.
I think it's 3. It's
One
of
part,
the-
obviously, that we've heard the most about is that beautiful mural. Tell us about that.
Oh, the mural is just wonderful. And what we do I'll get back to that, but what we're hoping to do is raise some more money so we can have another wall uncovered. It costs about $20,000 a wall, and money, of course, is tight.
Are there 2 walls now?
One, just
Oh,
one.
only one? I thought
Only
there were
one.
two.
This is, for people that may not know, Kathleen, this is in the dining room.
This is in the dining room, and this goes way back in at least till 1900. We're hoping, when the time comes we can get all the walls done, that there'll be a date that the painter will.
Is it 3 walls
It's on
or 4 walls?
4, all walls. Yeah.
Four
And it had been
walls.
hand-painted by someone
Yes, hand painted.
years ago.
So you
Yeah.
need another
Well,
$60,000.
you see, it was quite common in the times past
Yeah.
to have itinerant musicians, itinerant teachers,
Yeah.
and itinerant
Painters.
painters. So that's how it
So
happened.
would
It
they
was a
travel around?
comfortable time when you think
Yes,
about
and
it.
I
That people
remember
with those
when
talents could come
Isabel
in.
called me and one day, we were quite good friends, and she said, go in and see the new wallpaper I'm going to have. And she was taking the other one out. I said, oh, you're not you're going to, why don't you just leave that uncovered? No, we have to have wallpaper.
So it was covered with wallpaper.
Yeah.
So,
2
Yes.
coats? Did she strip the other wallpaper off and put on the new, or did she paper
That,
over?
I can't tell you about that. I
Well,
don't
you
know
can if you
whether
try to
she
take
did
it
or
off.
didn't. Yet, I can't remember whether she did or didn't.
but what has this society done to try to restore it, Kathleen? Explain to us about that.
Well, what we've done is, in a way, try to raise money. Because one wall now is done, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But we hope to raise enough money eventually to do another wall, and then another, and eventually.
But you have to have someone come in that knows how, and
Oh,
they're
yes.
very carefully
the lady
taking
we
it
had
off.
before is one of the most famous painters in Boston, and she was terrific. And in the end, she brought in another gentleman who worked faster, she said, do it, and he helped her. But if we could get them back, even to do one more, but we know we need to 20,000, which we don't have.
But it's really painstaking because they have to take off each little piece of wallpaper
the
not
tiny-
to
That's what I meant. I
disturb
didn't
what's
know if there was
underneath.
one
Tip
or
of your
two.
finger, yes, tiny,
Yeah.
very slow.
Yeah.
Because you can't scratch it or anything like that. And she did
And
a
if you
wonderful-
do, once you do, it's done.
it ruins it, yes. And we think that that's lovely, but it'll be really nice, and that'll be long after my time, when they have all the walls done.
So how does this Historical Society raise money? Have different fundraisers,
Yes,
dues,
and probably
help?
the most common one is a yard sale. That's
Okay.
what we have the most often. We haven't had this one this year. People get tired of doing it, you know. So we may not have one this year, I'm not sure.
And if people want to be a contributing member, they don't even have to go to
No,
meetings.
they
They
could
can
just pay us $15, which is a very modest sum.
That is modest.
Yeah, and we wish more people would do that. We'd like them to because it would be a big help. Yeah.
But if you become a member and go to the meetings, you have some really interesting presentations.
Yes, we do. We have very interesting speakers, and I'm kind of hoping sometime that we'll have like an Indian day, a Native American, I shouldn't call him Indian, Native American Day, and I know a gentleman who's in Dartmouth, and he is a Native American, and he invited me to go, Kathy and myself, to one of his programs, and it was wonderful. One of the things that they were doing was throwing a tomahawk, you know. And they said to me, do you want to do it? Have you ever done it? I said, no, I never threw a tomahawk. I threw a baseball. So I threw it, and believe it or not, that was a real one. It really got the right place. But it was funny because the gentleman in charge, I came over and he said, do you know you didn't throw that right? You threw it like a baseball. And I said, well, that's all I ever did.
You were a softball player,
Yeah,
weren't
so
you?
I didn't do that.
Were you a pitcher when you were in softball?
Catcher.
You were
Catcher.
the catcher.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
All through junior high, high school. So anyway, I'm lost track now of that. Oh, what we did anyways is have that, but we don't have enough money to go ahead and have another one. I'm hoping they will, though, because it would be nice if we have that all done. Really
It'd be
smooth.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But so if anybody wants to join, they can just.
They can join. It's only $15, even if they say they can't come. It's a nice thing because it's for the town.
Exactly.
You know, hoping to keep up the interest of the history of the town. Because if you live in one, you certainly want to know a little bit about it. And anyone could come. If they didn't belong, wanted to come, we had a speaker, that would be all right. Yeah, we'd welcome them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
sometimes people like the speaker and ask if they can come. We said,
When are your meetings usually, Kathleen?
they're on the second Monday of the month, every
you-
other month.
And you've had some interesting fundraisers or special events, I should say. I mean, you've had house tours in the past.
Yes, oh,
I
yeah.
remember one particular.
Patricia, you were in that when your father's automobile.
Yeah,
Yes,
one.
yes,
But
the
I was
automobile.
thinking of the
Were
one.
you the bride that
yeah,
time?
it was.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yes, that was how it was. Yes,
was
you
the
were.
bride.
Yeah, that was
quite
a,
interesting,
Yeah, that was
wasn't
a
it?
good comedy
And,
skit.
and I was your mother.
You were my
mother
mother.
of the bride. We had the most
Were you
gorgeous.
what were you doing?
I
you
was-
were something.
you
weren't
were
you?
I
there
don't
too.
remember what I was. I
But
think
you,
I was.
you were involved.
I was somewhere along that line. I was.
Bob Newton was the minister.
The
I think,
minister,
that-
oh, yeah, and he
Yeah.
was great. And we had wonderful costumes, didn't we?
We did.
yeah.
Oh,
And
yes,
another
we did.
thing we did that
I had a
liked.
jacket I couldn't get rid of. No, that was for the cemetery. That
That
was
was
the
the one
other
I was
thing
thinking
you.
of, is the
The other thing
cemetery.
you
I
did was
think
the
that's something
cemetery
we
when I
could
was up by
repeat-
the stone.
We could report that, repeat that again, don't you think?
Oh, the gravestones
It
aren't
wasn't-
going anywhere, Kathleen. I
No.
see no reason why not. I had the Leonard. I was James Leonard, I
Okay.
believe.
Yes,
All right.
And who come in but the former mayor? What was it, Crowley?
Crowley.
Yeah, and
Charlie Crowley?
Charlie Crowley, and he came up and I said to Charlie, now I'm saying we're not Raynham as such, we're part of Taunton, Charlie, so I don't want you to get upset. But I said, I have a problem after this is over. I don't know where Leonard's buried. And he said to me, it's a neighbor of yours on, what is it, off of where
Okay.
Ryan lives.
Okay, off of Warren Street.
Warren,
West.
Warren Street.
Yeah.
And the body is buried down there. It's
Oh
on the
my
maps
Yes.
that it's buried down there.
That's
Now
right.
the question is, is it down where the assistant superintendent, I'll call her that at the time, house, or is it down where the condos are? And there's a different theory. Your nephew and I
Did a
made a
little-
tour one time. We went looking for Leonard's burial site. Because that would be quite a find if we could find it.
It would.
But we're not sure, you know, I mean.
If anybody
people-
out there knows anything.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we're not talking here about, you know, 2019, 18. This is in the 1700s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
that's right.
Leonard was buried there. So, and in those days, they used to bury almost what you call, not to be negative, but in their backyard.
Yes, yes.
And there is one where I taught at Taunton High, and there was 2 burial sites in between the tennis court and the softball
Is that
field.
right?
There's 2 burial sites of whoever lived in that
House.
area at the time. So that's what they used to do. Now, of course, our friend Glavin, who does a wonderful job, has signs on each burial site as to whether it's the Dean Cemetery or,
Yes.
or the Leonard Cemetery.
Oh, that's
They've
wonderful.
done a wonderful
Yeah,
job.
well, that's
on that.
good.
Yeah.
I haven't been to some of those lately.
Yeah.
Must go and see that.
Well, I go by them in my walk. I walk down around that. Win and Win, there's the Dean
Yes.
Cemetery is right off of that. And I don't know how they get into it to service it because there's no real entrance, but they do get in there and they do service it. So,
Very good.
Kathleen, one thing I wanted to ask you about, which I don't know what time we're going to do on this, but you're famous in Massachusetts for your union work, and you were once president of the MTA.
Yes.
Would you care to expound a little bit on unionism as you recalled it in the early days?
Well, in the early days,
Because it certainly has changed,
unionism
hasn't it?
was very weak. But the time came when the teachers realized they were never going to go anywhere financially. For instance, my first pay was $596 a year.
A year.
Of course, I go way, way back.
Well, still.
That you needed some power struggle, and you needed to be able to combat that one. And that's really why the Teachers Association, actually it began way
Yeah,
before
that's
that.
the difference. People don't understand that. It started off as an association.
The association, yes, because
Not a union.
we didn't do any of that. Well, we didn't have unions in for the teachers at that time.
That's right.
And then the time came when they thought, if we have any power or not to ask for more money, before we usually wouldn't get anything. And so they thought, well, this is a good thing for the teachers to do. You're fighting for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you've traveled all over the country for that.
I have, yeah. Not looking for money, but for
No, no,
for them,
but
for one
to
thing
be
or
members
another.
of the
Right,
association.
yes, yes, I've been lucky.
How did you happen to become president, Kathleen? How did that come about? Were you teaching in Dartmouth at the time, or?
I was teaching in Dartmouth, right, but not at the time when my term came up.
Okay.
Before that, and then I remember I had to go to our superintendent and La Liberty and
Okay.
tell him about that, and it was hard for him to deal with because they never had anything like that. But he said if I was a non-teaching principal, there'd be no problem because he said the principal at the Merrill School at that time was the principal for middle school principals. But anyway, I was just, they had nominated committees in those days, and you had to go before the committee and talk, and then they decided whether or not they would sponsor you. And that's how it happened. So I went
Well, you
before
climbed
third
to the
vice
highest
president,
chair,
second
though. You
vice
did
president
that.
first.
Okay.
And then,
So
yeah.
people in Raynham, some don't understand that not only are you famous in the town of Raynham, you're famous in the Commonwealth of Mass and nationally.
Yes. Tell us about what happened this summer, Kathleen. The honor that you had at the National
Oh,
Association.
yes, I was at the National Teachers Association, and another former president and I were very interested, and always have been, in the Native American caucus that we have. And she said to me this day, we were going to a meeting, and somehow that caucus was always the last one out. She said, we've got to time and see how much time it takes us to get out today. She didn't tell me why. She said, well, we've got to count. And then we found it was 20 minutes to get out there. And so she said, I'm going to tell her we are leaving at 20 minutes, because she said, yesterday we were a few minutes late, and you don't like to be late, and I don't like to be late getting back. And I didn't pay it. I thought, all right, yeah, okay. So in 20 minutes, she went up and said, the lady, we do need to leave now. She told them why, but she didn't tell me why. And I got back there, and I just sat down, and I heard the president say, will Kathleen Roberts please go to Mike? And I thought, what have I done?
Are we going to continue on? How are we going to?
Yeah,
We got to
I
hear the
think
rest
so.
of this story
Definitely,
for
we're
sure.
gonna continue,
Is this
yes.
tape still running though? I
It's
want to
still
make
running,
sure.
I
that-
believe.
Is it?
Yes,
Yes,
it
we're
is,
going
yeah.
overtime. It's like a
No, I
baseball
didn't know
game
if
in
they had it still
overtime.
operating. I
Yeah.
don't want it to be
So he
blanked.
said, go to a mic, which I did, and I thought, good Lord, what have I done? I can't think of anything.
Whatever it is, don't do it again. Right?
So he started to tell them, about how many years I had been coming and
Yeah.
all that kind of
Yeah.
thing, and that I was there again. And then his question is, will you go next year when it's in Ohio? And I said, well, I'll go if I'm elected, because you have to be
Yeah.
elected now.
Yeah.
You can't just decide
Yeah.
to go. And he said, well, I hope you'll be elected. And I said, well, I do too, but we'll see. Because so many of the retirees want to go, and it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
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 So we'll see. If I have luck, I'll go.
So
And
they gave
then-
you recognition.
And so there I was, and up at the mic, and our president and a lot of people came with me, of course, because they all knew 4 days ahead.
Everybody was in on it, but guess who?
Yep. So he congratulated me and said how I'd been active in this and that and so forth. And of course, had to tell the age too. of
Well, you
course.
probably have attended more of the conventions
have.
than anyone else,
Yeah,
Kathleen.
I have. Anyone that's going now, maybe in the
Right.
past someone did, but
Right.
probably not. No, I have a great many of them.
And then you were at another convention recently, and our vice president recognized you.
Yes.
That was
Well, I
impressive
tell you how I
too.
met the vice president. It was at that meeting last summer, and when somebody from the real big shots from the leaders of the country are attending, as was happening, they invite the president of each state to go and sit on the stage with him. And that seemed only fair, but our president's an awfully good fellow, and he said, I'm not going to sit up there. I want the oldest person in our delegation to sit.
Gee, who could that be?
I said, what? Yes. He said, I want you to have the honor. And I thought, can't believe it. But anyway, that's what happened. I was up there, and we were at the end, myself and a fellow who was very forward, And as the vice president was coming by before he made his speech, he called out to him, Mr. Vice President. And the vice president came right over to where he and I were, because we were right on the end. And so I had like this. Yep. And then I saw him again when we were doing some political work, and he came right over. I had another one.
All right,
I
see
think he
that?
may be looking for you in a couple of years, though, to put a sign on your lawn. Now, normally you don't like signs on the lawn.
No.
And also, the may be the first woman president who would be running against him in that primary. Here we go again.
It is time for a woman, but not
I-
for anybody like me.
well,
We've got to have a young lady.
I was for Clinton in the first place, and I'm for her in the second, although I do like the vice president. I think he's a
Oh,
nice,
he is. He's
nice
he's
man.
really a very nice
yeah,
person.
yeah. So that'll be, here we go, Democrats again, Kathleen. Here we go, another battle down the line.
Now, Kathleen, of all the awards that you've gotten and recognition and so forth, what is most important to you? Is there one that stands out or a couple that stand out that really, would it be being recognized at the national convention in front of so many people?
It probably would
or-
be.
Yeah.
It probably would be.
Of course, locally in the state, too, they've named an award after you, too, the Kathleen Roberts Humanitarian Award, I think, or something to that effect.
Human relations.
Human
yes,
relations,
Yes, that's right. And the first winner was my closest friend in the MTA, so that was nice. I've been lucky in many, many ways, because I've been doing these things that I really
Well, you've
enjoy.
earned your luck,
That's
though.
right.
So, you know, lucky. Some people are lucky. I don't say you're lucky. I'd say you're in the right place at the right time because you keep active.
Yes, I hope to.
Now, over at our Council on Aging, I recently saw photos in the paper of some senior Olympics.
Yes.
And I think you were in a couple of photo shots playing horseshoes, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to know, did you actually really play horseshoes? You weren't just posing for the picture, you actually played.
Oh, no, we actually played.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And we used to throw the baseball. And my first one, I said, what has happened to this person in high school who could really throw the baseball? It went about 15 feet. I thought, I can't believe that's as far as I can throw.
They have
But the
that in
second
Fenway
one-
Park.
the second one was
when they
better.
try to throw, and there's a great athlete, a Hall of Famer, and it goes 15 feet. And that's just what happens when you get
Well,
out of...
it was funny.
Yeah.
Okay. But the second one was better. I said, can it possibly be? Kathy said, you don't use your arm or anything, you know.
I think that's pretty good.
But it's fun. We
Sure
all
it
have
is.
fun, and nobody cares who wins.
No.
And that's the important thing.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but okay. If you say so. Some of those ladies, I'm telling you, they take it very seriously.
Oh, I know they do. And listen, Pat White last year, not this year,
Yeah.
but a year ago, she won for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it goes
didn't
by
know
age
that.
groups, you know.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
And she was thrilled to death. So it means a lot.
Yeah, oh, yes, it does.
Yeah.
And you always have
And
a little bit of ice cream.
somebody once said, Kathleen Roberts wants to give ribbons to these people. I said, do you know some of these people, I've been lucky, and so have some of you, but
Some of
there's
them
some
never
people
have a-
never had an award of any kind.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with giving them a
No,
ribbon?
Right,
absolutely
exactly.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that. It's good.
Never mind the age. See, as I say, we do it in age
They do it in
category.
age bracket.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But our Council on Aging is, in the last many years, has become really, really active. We have so many seniors, so many different activities. I know you're a big part of that, Kathleen.
Well, it's
So
good.
important
And
for
our
them to
job
keep active.
is to keep seniors active if they
Kathy and
want
I
to
went
be.
by the other day, and there was nowhere to park. We had to go in on something, and there
Yep.
was one parking spot left.
I can believe it.
So, I mean, wow. And then in the other room, there was something going on. I don't know what it was.
Well, they
getting-
now have a little choir, you know.
I didn't know
We
that.
haven't heard it yet.
They used to
but-
have painters and
Yeah.
knitters, and now you
oh,
got a
oh, you do.
choir.
Oh, you have them every Friday. They come in.
So,
Well, that's nice.
And some of the other interesting things you've done in our schools, Kathleen, too, after, as a volunteer, you've been Mrs. Santa Claus. I shouldn't give that away, but you've been Mrs. Santa
Oh, yes.
Claus and just all kinds of things. Oh, remember the literacy nights that we had at La
Oh,
Liberty,
those were
too?
wonderful.
And we dressed, John, did you, I don't know if we roped you into that one or not.
literacy doesn't sound like Donald McKenna.
Okay, well, we dressed up in character.
And,
I am a
We like
character.
to, yeah,
I
exactly.
think that was one of the best programs we did.
And Kathleen, I think once you were Abigail Adams.
Abigail Adams, that's
yeah,
right.
and I was Nellie Bly. I think
Yes, yes.
in a former life I was Nellie Bly. I think really, I really connected to that reporter.
Don't think I've
Yeah.
ever done.
It was fun, wasn't it?
It was, and it was all of the
place was
students
mobbed.
at La Liberty. They came and they sat on the floor and had popcorn and juice
Yeah.
and listened to us talk about who we were.
Oh,
and
that's great.
it was fun.
It was really
That's a
nice.
little bit like the cemetery
that'd
thing
be-
where
Yeah,
they
right,
did
exactly.
I
the
think that
roles.
would be a good thing for them to do again.
That was
sometime.
fun.
Sure.
We have a
Reason
few
why
local
not.
hams that like
Yeah,
to,
sure.
do that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun.
Speaking again about history, you have also spent time working on a book that's in progress. Tell us about some of that.
I'm afraid that I'm way, way behind. Because a short while ago, my niece said, now at the end of September, I want that book finished. That's what you're to do, nothing else. Well, I don't think it will be. But I do have 63 of the chapters done. And so I'm changing the title instead of history. It's going to be glimpses. So if you say glimpses, you can really stop anywhere. So I do hope, not by the end of this month, that I will get it done.
And these chapters, Kathleen, look at different individuals in
Yes,
Raynham's
individuals
history.
and activities, that's right.
And how did you do research for that?
I spent a lot of time at the town hall, working there because they had a lot of the old town reports, and I went through every one of those town reports, and they were very, very nice. Let me, go in there and do that kind of thing, and a lot of time at the library, and quite a bit of time at the Old Colony, because they had like the histories of Bristol County. I found quite a bit of interest in information.
Is this on Raynham per se, or
Yeah.
Bristol County?
No,
or-
no, no, Raynham.
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 So, for example, who are some of the people that you write about? Amy Leonard?
Oh, of course. Yes. Of course, Amy Leonard. She had to be there, you know. And people who were involved in the town in the earlier years. And we have a gentleman in our presence who has given me the information, and I haven't got it done yet.
Okay, so there'll be
Well,
an,
we've got,
a
you know,
glimpse
we're
of-
looking forward to that book, but I thought there wasn't, is it Cynthia Booth Riccardi? Was she going to help you a little bit?
She's not going to help me, but she is going to read it for me.
edit.
She'll
the
re-
editor.
she's going to edit
She's
it.
gonna be
And
the
she
editor.
volunteered.
Yeah.
She came to me
Well,
one
of course,
day.
she's up the street. She's from Raynham originally.
Oh, I know she is. She used to work at the library as
Yeah.
a kid.
Yeah, Arthur
Yeah.
Booth.
Yeah, she's a
sure.
lovely person.
Oh, yeah.
So one day she said to me, "Would you like me to edit it for you?" And I thought,
She's,
I
I think, a president of the Taunton Historical Society.
That's what
That's
she
right.
is. She's for quite a few years. She's
yeah,
been
Old
president.
Colony. Yes, for quite a
Old
few.
Colony, yeah.
And she's good. She can really write too. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very
so
good.
this is what we're looking forward to, this book.
I'll have to
We want it
tell
in
my niece.
hardcover, though, no soft cover for us. We want it in hardcover.
And didn't you get your hands on Amy Leonard's diary, too, I think,
I
Kathleen,
tell you,
or
the diary was not.
whose diary was it? I know you had someone's.
It was her friend. Now wait a minute. Now. Oh, what was her name? She was Amy Leonard was her close friend.
Okay.
I can't think of her name now.
It'll come to you. We'll go back to it.
She was in one of the first families now. Right offhand, I've forgotten. Shows
You
I
know, when I
better do
first
some.
came to Raynham, I used to hear the title of the building that burnt to the ground, and I thought it was a Native American name, and in my simplistic way. We own it.
Oh yes, yes, we own it.
We own it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was an Indian name. We
No,
own it.
no.
Come to find out, it was just what it said, which
We
I
own
wasn't. We own it.
And it was the
we
women's
own it.
club. We had a very
Yes.
active women's club
Yes,
here,
you
beginning
did.
of 1902, I think.
Yes.
And when they got that, they were so proud of it. Instead of going to each other's houses.
And they finally made the final
Yeah.
payment,
Yeah.
and we own it.
Yeah,
And
that's right. Don't you think that's cute?
It does
I think
sound
it's
like an
wonderful. I
Indian
think it's unique. I don't know of anything else
Great
ever,
imaginations.
Yeah.
ever named like. And then wouldn't you know, down it went. Because
I
in those
know.
days, every
That's-
wooden building burnt to the
Because that
ground.
had a lot of, people had a lot of good memories about that.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
That was near Johnson's Pond?
And yes, and I remember reading one day that Betty Thompson's, let me see, what would he be? Betty Thompson's, would it be an uncle? Her husband's uncle. Had a factory where they made baskets. And one year he made a May basket for every single member of
Wow.
that club.
He was a Thompson?
Yes.
Thompson
Okay,
Box
yeah, it was
Company.
Betty's
That's our husband's.
yeah,
Husband's, yeah.
family,
Yeah.
of which
And-
they're a famous family.
Very famous.
Thompson and
Oh, yes.
Betty's.
Yes, we have something
that
about them in that.
Yeah,
They were famous.
yeah.
Now, obviously, Kathleen, you're an inspiration to so many of us now. But as you looked through Raynham's history, was there someone that stood out that was inspirational
To
you?
me, it's Amy Leonard. Yes, because Amy Leonard went to they called them normal schools then, and they had just opened really, and she went over to Bridgewater
That would have been after the high school.
after
She would
high
have been
school.
a graduate of a high school.
Oh yeah, the high school. Yeah.
And then, so
Yeah.
people understand that the normal school wasn't part of,
Oh no.
this
no,
was
no.
a college-oriented,
Yeah. 1 year,
2 years or 1 year.
possibly 2.
Postgraduate,
two.
So
right?
yeah, so she did take lessons in it, and she was a very bright lady anyway.
Was she a nurse also, or was
She
that?
was a nurse in the Civil War.
Right.
She volunteered. She had never been a nurse. She had been a teacher.
Yeah,
And she saw the great need for doing that, and she was another one who volunteered and did a lot of things in the town. And so she volunteered and went in and was trained to be a nurse, and came down with the bad disease that so many of them came down with. And they practically ordered her to leave and go home until she got better. But she said, no, as long as there's that a young man left here who needs help, I'm staying. And she got a little better, but still by the time the war was over and she came home, she was in very bad shape. But fortunately, the good Raynham air
Well,
in
in
her
that
family.
war, there was so many lost in that war.
Oh, it's dreadful.
In comparison to the King Philip War, had the highest percentage in this country of people lost because they hit houses.
Yeah.
But the Civil War of actual type of war since we were a country, I think, was the highest casualty rate.
Sure.
Raynham had large numbers.
Yes,
We
they
didn't
did.
have large numbers living here, and we had large numbers that we
Yes.
lost.
Well,
And Amy was a
lot
real
of the men
hero.
worked in the shoe factory
Yes.
up in the north,
Yeah.
and but they went to war. There were a lot of Raynham.
Well, wasn't Anderson who got the medal, I think?
Yes.
Or Anderson?
He's from that war.
And he was
And I
an
think I
indentured
think
servant, they called him in
He
those
needs
days.
to be honored in this town. 'Cause
Yes, I really believe that along with
Yes.
Sergeant Monte.
He was the first Congressional Medal of Honor winner
Yes.
from Raynham.
Yes.
It was a Congressional
He
Medal of
was.
Honor at that
Yeah.
time, yeah.
And so I think I've felt right along
Yes,
that he should be honored sometime.
because he was part of that. In those days, they traveled around by train. They got
Yeah,
off the train
yeah.
and the farmer picked them. He was one of those picked to do farm work. And he re-enlisted in the Civil War, I believe, and the fatality rate was so high.
Oh,
When you
terrible.
re-enlisted, the
Well,
chances
that's
of you
why
coming
Amy-
home were not good.
Amy Leonard wouldn't quit even though she was sick, because she said, there
Yeah.
are so many of these
Yeah.
young men here,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and she says, I can't leave when we don't have enough help as it is to take care of them.
In a way, it was the last war that they stood up and fired, because
Oh,
then
yes,
they went
and
into
each other.
trenches
Yeah,
into World War
Yeah.
One. So war progressed, and it was one of the
Unfortunately.
last of the standing wars where they loaded the rifle while the man behind them fired, and then and it was one of those take turns and fire, and you were standing right up, and the bullets were coming right at
Absolutely.
you. How did you survive that war? Not many survived.
no,
It was a
Terrible
terrible
war.
war. Terrible war. Kathleen, let me give you a name now. I was just wondering, of the legendary people besides M. Patrice White, we lost E. Joseph La Liberty within the last year. Can you give us some input on E. Joseph?
well, of course, he was our superintendent, and a wonderful man, very, very nice man. We all enjoyed working for him. He didn't change, you know, as superintendent. And you could be sure that if you had any problem or anything, you could go to him, and he was always willing to listen. And if he found out you were doing your job and everything, he never bothered you coming around a whole lot because he figured you didn't need it, that he needed the time to go to people who maybe hadn't taught so long. But he was very, very fair.
So he was always fair, which is an important thing
Yes,
to
he was
say.
fair.
Yeah.
I remember when I became president of the MTA, I had to ask for 10 days off the year before to have a little training, you know, to be able to go in there and do some of the, and that bothered him an awful lot. He said if you were only a non-teaching, a regular principal, he said there wouldn't be any problem.
But you were
And
teaching.
I said to him, you should have told me that when I was elected third vice president, because you were elected third, second, first. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, you're climbing the
So
chairs.
I said, now I'm ready to become
Yeah.
the president.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he was very, very good, wonderful man to work for.
Well, education in Raynham, though, really kind of started under E. Joseph La Liberty. Not that it wasn't, there weren't schools
was good
before, but
before,
there were.
yes.
But his was structured. I always said if he were in industry, he'd have been the CEO
Oh,
of
absolutely.
Fortune 500
Yes.
because he was so well structured.
bright man.
He brought people in who were from Mansfield. It was the Mansfield invasion. And well, you came from where? Dartmouth? Or,
Yes,
And,
Dartmouth.
and he came from Mansfield as they did. And so all these people like yourself and Joseph came into this town and really turned it completely around so much. So when he finally retired, Billy Sullivan took over almost like passing the baton, and Billy was loved by everybody because he always had
everybody
always had the paycheck. And he'd go around, give everybody a kiss, and give them a paycheck. You can't be any more popular than a man
no,
who
we
kisses you with a paycheck.
But he was wonderful.
That's-
If
Billy-
he gave us money or not.
Still got
he was
us,
wonderful.
yes.
We all
But
loved
see,
him.
what you said was the key to it, whether he gave us money or not, because basically both of them were very frugal, can we say, or
Yes,
cheap.
they were.
And as a result, poor Elaine Williams, when she came in, she got hit by a 2x4 because everybody had been waiting so long for the legendary Liberty and Sullivan to finally retire. That boom, we had a strike on our hands. I said, "Oh my goodness, what a terrible thing!" But anyway, then we turned regional because of that situation. We were just talking earlier today, Pat and I, about the time, and it was about 94 or 95.
1994.
Yeah. So all of these things happened after E. Joseph and Billy Sullivan, who, by the way, if you go into town hall today, the most beautiful room in the town hall is the Sullivan room. A huge
The school
picture.
had been named after him. It
And
was
the
originally
school was
Center
named
School,
after
then the
him.
Sullivan School.
And I went one time to Woburn to try to get something named after my uncle, who was a legendary fellow in Woburn, you know. And the superintendent or the mayor told me, don't get a school named after yourself because you'll lose it because they keep changing. And that's what happened with poor Billy Sullivan. He lost the name. But Joe Betancourt, who was a friend to have, has a plaque coming in, it's giving the breakdown of Billy when he was dead, and then a huge picture. And the room is a conference room which looks out. It's just a beautiful
It's out over
room.
South Main Street. It's very
Because
nice.
even though he lost the name, it's now the Raynham Town Hall. Sully still has that as much recognition as E. Joseph, probably, you know.
Yes, yeah. Well, they were both good superintendents.
Well, they were, but I'm saying when they finally left, it was like boom. Poor
Yeah.
Elaine Williams came in, and whoa, what hit me? She ended up down in another town, which she stayed for like 15 or 20 years. And when they regionalized, there was a gentleman, was it Conley or something was his name? He was the assistant. He was the superintendent for a year or so here when they regionalized. And they
Joe
had
Connors.
Joe Connors. And when they regional, of course, I opposed it naturally because that's the way I am.
What about Joe Gilbert, though? He was her assistant, wasn't he?
See, I'm trying to figure out, was Gilbert the Boston College graduate? Whoever was the superintendent at the time, there were obviously
I think it
three
was Joseph
superintendents.
Gilbert.
I think it's Gilbert.
There was Mr.
Gilbert.
Donahue.
Ed Donahue was the principal, the
principal of
superintendent
the
of the
high
high
school.
school.
Yeah.
Then there
He
was
had-
Gilbert, was it?
Yes, Joseph
And then there
Dr.
was a
Gilbert.
superintendent of the K-8 in Bridgewater
Bridgewater.
who was ready to retire. So really, that only left two superintendents of what Gilbert, and the way it went, and I shouldn't get into this, but I tend to do
That's
these
all right.
things, you know. The way it worked was the superintendents weren't supposed to have anything to say about it because they had everything to win and everything to lose. So they weren't supposed to say anything. So they were silent on the whole thing till about the last 2 or 3 weeks, and suddenly, I don't know who released them. Somebody released them, and all three superintendents came out in favor of it. And I said to Gilbert at the time, I think he's a Boston College graduate. I think he ended up as a consultant. And
He is.
And
He's
we
a-
hired him back as a
Right,
consultant.
right, when we did our superintendent search.
And he was
Right.
in charge of
Cape
that.
Cod Collaborative.
A brilliant
I think.
man.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And with all, I can say this to Raynham because Raynham can keep a secret. Gilbert should have been the pick. I'm biased, I will grant you, but he should have been the pick. Mr. O'Donoghue was very good as a principal of the K-12, but to take the 9 to 12.
Yes.
But to take the complete merge, he stayed maybe a year or two, maybe 3, something like that. And I said to, was it Gilbert? Is that what his
Yes,
name was?
Joe
I
Gilbert.
said to Joe Gilbert at the time, they let him keep his office, which was in the Merrill School, let him keep his office. And I said to him, let me tell you something, Joe. If a year from now you're still here, I will have been mistaken in saying you should be the guy to be the superintendent because there's no way they're going to hold you down as an assistant superintendent after you've been a superintendent. And he was gone within a year. He went to a town like
He became
Belcher Town,
superintendent in another
which is
district.
like a food impairment or some Belcher Town. That's where he ended up.
And
But
then he became the executive director of the Cape Cod Collaborative. I think it's an educational.
That was a brilliant man. That's what
Yeah.
no disrespect to Mr. Donahue,
Right.
but I mean, he had his slot.
Educational.
And this guy here was brilliant. And I says, you fought for this, and they didn't even consider you. You are not even under consideration. So I says, within a year, you're gone, or else I was wrong, and I was right.
Okay.
He was gone. He was gone within a year. Let me ask you this too, Kathleen, before we do run out of time. We were just about ready, quite candidly, to gut the North School when the alumni came along, your former students, and said, no, we got to save the school. So they've done the best they can. They've cleaned out the hazardous part of it, and now they've got it, and they can't seem to get anybody to move in and rent it. Can you give us something on the North School?
Well, I thought that there was,
There is someone that's interested, I
There's
think, that's
somebody
going to
that's-
meet
There's always
with us,
someone who's
right.
Somebody
interested, and
that's
then they don't
interested.
do anything
and
about
you
it.
know, we were going to have an open house
Yes.
when the former students and the former teachers and townspeople
Yes.
could come, look it over and
Yes,
everything.
yes.
And I don't know why they didn't have that, because I think they should have. They might have looked at it a little differently if they did that.
Well, one of the floors is kind of nice, the other is terrible. And I
Well, that
was
could be
often
fixed, yeah.
wondering how, oh yes, I was wondering how that private school operated there as long as it did. It's down in Middleborough now. Have you heard anything about it, Pat?
No,
I don't know if it's
No,
successful
I
or
don't
not.
know anything about
It was
it.
a very nice private school, but I mean, it was operating in a building that was really not up to code or
Yes,
anything. Only private schools could do this. But your memories of it, do you have a little
Oh,
office
I had a lot of
there?
fun there.
Did you have a little office too?
No,
It was
No
right out,
office?
it
No,
was
I'm
right
a
out in
teaching
the
principal.
corridor, right?
Yeah,
There's a
but
little
that wasn't
desk in
my
the
office,
corridor,
no.
right?
We used that for, we ate
Secretary,
there.
right.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
ate there.
yeah.
And, no, I never.
So actually, you just had your classroom. Now, there were how many classes in that? 4?
4.
And it was it 1, 2, 3, 4?
No, no, there were 2 ones and 2
2s.
twos.
Okay,
And then the kindergarten came in.
okay.
Let me see, it was one, what did let's see, there were 2 first, and I had the second, and there was kindergarten.
Who were some of the teachers that taught there, Kathleen? Can you remember any names? I know Kathy Clarkin, Catherine
Yes,
Clarkin.
and Joe
Rigo. Rico.
Rigo was there, and Boyd, what's her name? She's in Bridgewater. No, not Boyd. What was her name?
Is she
Her
still
name was
active?
Boyd.
Still active?
Oh no,
No.
a long time ago she retired.
Peter
Yeah.
Flynn's wife didn't teach there,
Oh,
did she?
Nancy Flynn. Yeah, Nancy Flynn was
Nancy
there, wasn't
Flynn.
she?
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
Nancy
she was
over
the
there?
principal there for a little while.
She was
Yeah, after
physical
you
ed or
left. She
something
was
like that.
principal when after
Yeah,
Kathleen
yeah,
left.
she's a very nice lady. Yeah. Oh, Peter, nice family.
Yeah, he was nice.
Flynn's
yeah.
were a nice family.
He was.
So do you think you don't know at this time, do we? We don't
No.
know. We're outside.
No, but I'm
We're
hoping
has-beens.
if you have some influence, I think we should
I have
have
no influence anymore on my has-been.
an open house, though,
Yeah.
really, so that the town
Yeah.
folks could go in, former students, because I know several told me, I thought you were going to have an open house then.
Yeah.
I said, well, I
Yeah.
thought so too.
What was mentioned is an idea, Kathleen, but you have to put a lot of work behind some of these ideas sometimes to make them into reality. So
Yeah, well, I still think they should have a,
Okay,
An
we
open
I
house
just
there.
wanted to touch base because that
Yeah.
was you were the last principal, I believe, of that school.
I think
were you
Nancy
not?
Flynn was
Nancy
Did
there.
Nancy
Flynn,
Flynn
she
take it
followed
over
me.
for a while?
Yeah.
Very nice lady, Nancy Flynn.
But our Sullivan School at one point was slated possibly to be demolished.
That's
too.
right.
And the Historical Commission got on board and asked the selectmen
Yeah.
to look into that.
Barbara
and then he
Sleazer and
recruited
Barbara Gallagher were
Sleazer and
very
Barbara
influential
Gallagher,
on
and
keeping that.
Now we have a
As
beautiful
a matter of fact,
town office building.
not the
well,
highway
you
department,
got
but
to
the
get
building
to work
department.
on it again. Isn't there one group that's interested in renting it, though?
Yeah, I think we're
I don't
going
think
to meet
so.
with a group. Some
In
group
reality,
like
I
that.
don't
Yes.
think so. but If you
We
say
shall
so,
see-
it must be so.
stay tuned.
But we did have that. We did have that.
There's
as a-
some man that contacted Marcia, I think.
Okay.
They're interested in having it.
Well, we certainly hope so because it's a
Yeah.
beautiful location.
Yeah, oh, nice.
And the
Very
people are used to that
Yes.
there.
You
So.
hate to lose those old buildings. We
Yeah.
don't
Well,
have
we're
that
gonna,
many.
round third, as Kurt Gowdy used to say, we're heading home.
Here we are. See that?
And thank
We-
you, Kathleen,
overtime,
very
Kathleen.
much for coming in. Old number 99, they should retire that number, 99. In Fenway Park, 99, right next to it.
And we are just about out of time, but Kathleen Roberts, our special guest today, Don McKinnon, our host. We want to thank all of you for joining us here on The Good Old Days, and please tune in for our next episode.
Now, Kathleen, we're supposed to sing a song, but